Look, I know you were burned before with the whole Endrick thing from last season, but I promise you, this signing is not clickbait. Right now over on stream, we are of course doing the transfer window, so join us over there after you've done this. We've been working on something rather interesting that you're going to want to see. There'll be a video about it coming up later in the week though. And all the VODs of course can be found on the second channel, which is linked in the description. They go up the day after the streams air. And later in the video, I'm going to be highlighting a signing that another Hungarian side has made, and genuinely, this might be the biggest transfer coup I've ever seen in FN, particularly for a second tier side. But more on that later. There were, however, some more additions to the loan farm, starting to build it up a little bit more, getting some more players out on loan, including some first teamers who were just struggling to get as much football this year, the likes of Panashe Mutimbanyoka, Mateus Vital, and others of that kind of ilk. And a lot of youngsters in there and some names that you might not recognise, but you're soon gonna, because they're some of the signings that we signed up this summer. The first out, however, was Christian Arrieta. He's moved back to Colombia for a small fee of £15,000. We were going to release him at the end of the season, and incredibly, a side were actually willing to pay a little bit of money to get him off of our books in January. Similar story with the Peruvian Gerald Tavera, although this time we were able to get them, incredibly, to pay us £235,000 for the privilege of signing him 6 months before his contract expired. Now, as far as recruitment has gone for the team this year, we actually set up and were twiddling around with some recruitment focuses, something that I'm still incredibly unconvinced by, but that is a rant for a different video. However, a certain set of settings did actually find and start to bring through some interesting players for us, which led us down a very interesting rabbit hole, but again, that is a story for another day, but you're certainly going to see some of the fruits of that today.
Fanny Snapshot. Wait, no. Fanny Snapshot? I just called you Fanny Snapshot. I'm so sorry.
First of these is youngster Frank Axelsson, 18-year-old, joined us on a free transfer from Asker in Norway. He then spent some of the rest of the season back there on loan, but for free on £400 a week with 5-star potential. We really could not say no whatsoever. Next up is a signing that genuinely surprised all of us. We got him in a random scout report towards the end of last season as he was being released by Tours in France. 1.7k a week, but he's a really solid advance forward with 17 finishing. He does lack that little bit of top-end speed, but he's been really working on his composure this year, and you can see that 21 goals for the club this year, including 18 in 20 in the league, is a very, very strong return. He's even wanted by someone, which is new for me. And who is that team? It's Juve. I mean, that is very, very intriguing indeed. Next is Eftichis Chondroudakis, or you may know him as Effie from Skins, because that's what we've been calling him this entire time. He comes in for £22,000 from Belgian side Rebecca. Now, the thing is, you're going to see a lot of players joining us from Belgian sides during this, because that forms part of our transfer strategy now, because we've been finding some very interesting stuff there, along with some other stuff, which again, I'll explain in another video. The point is, I'll just TLDR it for you. Basically, Belgian amateur sides produce really good talent, and they end up in the Belgian youth national sides very, very early, and they're almost always available for free. There's a lot more to it than that, but that should get you started if you fancy looking through those teams. And just as a side note, if you see faces on players that look too young to have faces, they're Z-Gens. Don't worry, they are still regen players. They've just got the Z-Gen faces on them now. Then there was £19,000 Icelandic centre-back Andre Gunnarsson, who, again, just a really solid centre-back. Hasn't really played for us much, particularly at all. Next up is another of the Belgian contingent. This is Antoine Merle, a free transfer from RFC Liège. I don't think I really need to explain why he's so good. He's basically the second coming of Philippe Novak, and he's only like a year younger than Novak as well. And next to him is another example of that. 100% free Flavian Moors, a 19-year-old Belgian who's already got 5 caps for the Belgian under-21s, and he signed for free from Eindracht Ulst in Belgium. Massive player. 16 jumping reach at 6'3", 12 heading, 14 marking, and 16 tackling. Low aggression, but that doesn't seem to have cost him too much. Already 3.5 stars, and probably our best centre-back at only the age of 19. And he's now wanted by Juve as well. I think Juve have just gone, MTK is our shopping list this year. Then we have Ovidio Ciobanu. He may sound Romanian, but he is in fact Belgian as well. He does have Romanian as a second nationality. Look at the physicals on him. Just utterly mad. 61 games he'd played for Racing Mechelen before he joined us for £0. He's been out on loan in the second tier with Budapest Honvéd this season, played 38 matches as they romp to a second tier title. I believe they got 98 points in the second tier this year, so they will be rejoining us in the top flight, and he's had a full season of football at 18 years old. What more do you want? Then there's this chappy here, Derek Ossay. What can I say about him? Another free transfer from Berkham Sport, another Belgian. The development graph is certainly a very good thing for you to see there. He's playing on loan at Kisvada, who were playing in, well, not in Europe, but they've qualified for Europe this year with his impetus, starting 16 matches for them in the top flight at only 18 years old. I think there's an absolutely cracking player to be had with him in the future, and the fact that he's out on loan doing mad bits for them makes me very happy, because he could be one of the first guys to really step forward for the loan farm. The next one is where things get a little bit strange. We signed Nicola Pepe. The Nicola Pepe. This is not some nonsense. He was released by Arsenal in the summer. We took him on trial as a bit of a meme, hoping another Belgian side would pick him up. In the end, we had a bit of spare cash lying around and we thought we'd try and sign him. You might notice how he currently doesn't play for us anymore. That's because we did the ultimate flip reverse, where we sold him after 6 months at the club for 400 grand to Astana over in Kazakhstan, where he managed to quadruple his money. He was only on a grand a week when he was here. And a signing that's slightly out of left field for us. This is João Virginia. He was released by Everton. He's coming to be our first choice goalkeeper. Unfortunately, we've kind of had to give up on the Nwosu experiment. It got to the point where he had a 50% save ratio. So we had to bring in some backup to allow that to be a bit better. And of course, João Virginia came in, kept 21 clean sheets in 35 appearances. Next up actually is the biggest signing of the season in terms of transfer outlay. This is Yakubu Yeboah. Yes, that is actually his real name. He's joined us from Hearts of Oak for £250,000. We massively overspent on him. He's now been adjusted to having 5-star potential. So it does seem that having played for us a little bit more, he seems to be developing very well. Resolute personality, insane flair, dribbling and technique. He's a wonderful player. He's really nice to have around the club, but we did massively overpay on him. But you have to when you see a guy called Yakubu Yeboah. What, are you telling me you're not signing him as well? Then we took a trip to Brazil. Joaquim Tenore, 18-year-old Brazilian. He's looking better and better the more I look at him, actually. Every time I see him, he seems to look like a better player. Once again, free transfer from Desportivo Brazil. Great physicals, brilliant mentals with 20 determination, and his technicals aren't half bad either. I think there's a real baller in the future for him. And again, £375 a week. Over on stream right now, we've developed a filtering system that might allow us to find quite literally hundreds of these players. Obviously, can't sign them all, but yeah, stay tuned. Then, of course, the backup to our man Sagdal on the right-hand side, which is why we were able to sell Arieta at this point. This is De Silva, another of the Brazilians that joined us. Great physicals, solid mentals as well, and decent technicals. But not only that, at 19 years old to be a model citizen, yeah, you could bet we were going to sign him, and he's done okay. Mostly substitute appearances this year, but he'll certainly get there. And now, for the big one. The one you saw in the thumbnail and in the title, and you're thinking, I don't know, I can feel the wool being pulled over my eyes. Worry not, for it is Brahim Diaz. 26-year-old Brahim Diaz. This isn't like we're signing an old version of Brahim Diaz. He's 26. He was released by Real Madrid in the summer, went 6 months without even having a club, and we were like, well, we brought in a big batch of players on trial in January to try and farm them out to other Hungarian sides, because that system really does work. They actually scavenge your trials. It's brilliant. No one picked him up, and we thought, let's just ask his agent to see what he's interested in. He was willing to sign for us on £4.5 a week. And with the value that we'd get out of having him here, both in terms of what he could offer us and what he could potentially get in sale value, it was an absolute no-brainer. But now to the league performances. These will be a little bit more truncated as the seasons go on, as the league becomes less important in theory, as we progress with the save.
Can he do the magic? Of course he can. It's Moses Jarju. I don't think this man has missed a single penalty for us yet. Oh, why do I speak? I see this a lot of the time because you rarely ever see my hands, but I'm furiously masturbating the entire stream. Also with a huge one. He's making the come.
Despite a very good performance on the opening day in a 3-0 victory over Zalagashegi, we then went on and didn't get a single win in our next 3 matches, taking only 1 point, finding ourselves, I believe, down in 9th place at this stage in the season. A good win against Mezhkovez pulled us back in, but then another draw against Ferencváros just really struggled to get ourselves any kind of momentum. Some good wins in the cup and a good victory against Újpest allowed us to get some momentum back before we followed it up with a lovely 6-0 thrashing of Molfehérvár away from home, and a ridiculous 7-4 win away at Puskás Academy.
It's where he just tried to backheel a football and fell over and conceded a goal because of it. And right, keeper. Hello. Oh no. Oh god. Oh god.
All of this did allow us to pull ourselves all the way up to 3rd in the league, with only 2 points off the top, who Kisvado are currently setting a really lightning fast pace at the top of the league, even outpacing us and Ferencváros. Sadly, in the next game, we went down to a 2-1 defeat against Újpest, but they did, thanks to Jockey Monster, yes, that's his real name, score one of the loveliest little free kick moves I've ever seen.
Oh! That was really cool.
This then became a catalyst for some success as we then won our next 4 matches in a row, conceding only 1 goal. And after 19 games, we had finally reclaimed the top spot in the league, but only by 3 points over Kisvada and only 1 point clear of Ferencváros, so still not plain sailing by any means, although Rivière, top scorer nearly at this point. The excellent run then continued with 4 more victories in there, including progression in the cup. We were then brought back down to earth, though, by a 2-2 draw away from home against Puskás Academy, who were having a really struggling season, and unfortunately both goals came extremely late. And with 9 games to go, we'd stretched our lead to 3 points, and by far 5 points over Kishvarda, completely dropping everybody else, looking mad favourites for the title, but you still never know what can happen at these places with 9 games to go. However, we very much needn't have worried. After some strong progression in the cup, seeing us get all the way to the cup final, we went on a mad run, winning 8 of our remaining 9 matches in the league, including though losing once again to Regan Booty's Pakshi. Sadly though, we did lose the Magyar Cup final to Ferencváros. Worst thing about that though is we had 21 shots, 8 on target, 3.03 XG. They had a red card as well, but they still managed to win the game by 3 goals to 2. Not that they particularly needed it, as they did finish 10 points clear of Kishvarda. We ended up winning the league in the end by 8 points. Same number of defeats, but we just got those few extra wins. Riviere actually was the top scorer in the league for us, and joint top scorer in the league with Ryan and me, with 18 goals this year. The second tier though was absolutely dominated. Relegated Budapest Honvéd eventually ended up winning the league by, they won the league by 30 points, and were 31 points clear of being promoted. And I just noticed that our affiliate side won promotion on the final day. That's amazing. So on the topic of Budapest Honvéd, I teased the greatest transfer coup I'd ever seen, and it was in fact Budapest Honvéd who made this signing. Now, he certainly didn't transform their season because they were already in this position when they signed him, but needless to say, I suspect he might be a threat in the top flight next year.
Look at the wage, chat. Look at the wage. Hakim Ziyech has just signed for Budapest Honvéd at the age of 32 for £600. They're not even in the top flight. That might be one of the most batshit transfers I've ever seen. This guy's good enough to play in the top flight. He's good enough to be playing for one of the top teams in Hungary, and he's playing in the second tier.
But that's enough domestic action. Let's talk Europe. Champions League second qualifying round. We made it quite difficult at home against Riga, only getting a 4-3 victory in the end, but it's getting through that progresses you the most. Duh, obviously. What? This was compounded by the fact that we had to go to extra time in the second leg to win the tie by 7 goals to 6, thanks to Effie and Kapralik's goals in extra time. Unfortunately, we then drew against Ludogorets, and a 2-0 defeat away from home with Rick and Alexander Dimov didn't exactly put us in good positions, but I felt that at home we could be stronger. And that's exactly what we were doing until things went horribly wrong for us, unfortunately. We were looking in really good shape and were winning the match, I believe. And then Mihaly Keita decided to 2-foot someone directly after half-time. Now, we actually did establish ourselves a 3-1 advantage even after that with Bobby Abduholikov, but Piotrowski's goal for Ludogorets was enough for us to go out of the Champions League qualifiers. And that then led to a matchup against one of our old foes from previous seasons. And once again, we fell to a John Guidetti brace. Just these things right now, honestly. Quite an even game. They were slightly better than us, and 3-2 is probably a pretty deserved result in the end. We needed that home form to come good. And boy, oh boy, did it. It was the Labassi and Bobir show. A 5-0 hammering, 2 for Labassi, 3 for Bobir, and a 5-0 twatting of AIK sent us through 7 goals to 3 on aggregate, and we do at least make the Europa League group stages for the first time in the save. And that is very good news. Started off with a slightly unfortunate, if anything, 0-0 draw at home to Brighton, and Wusu played a good performance here. We probably should have won this, honestly. But we then bounced back with a brilliant 2-1 victory in Greece with Ngom and Pereira grabbing the goals. 2-1. 4 points from our first 2 games. Good news. The excellent yet still slightly disappointing run continued with another 0-0, this time at home against Standard Liège. 2 home games in here which we've drawn 0-0 that arguably we should have won both of them. And that is a little bit irritating, but it is what it is. We then massively made up for that though with another great victory over Braga of all people. Another of the casualties from the past with Bobby and Novak getting the goals. Lovely stuff. Unfortunately, that same thing could not be said for the match away in France against Lille. After taking an early lead through Novak, we then conceded 3 goals by half time. And honestly, we had so many chances in this game, and on another day we win this game. So I think we were just a bit unlucky in Europe, honestly. We were the better side in most games we played and should have got more points than we did up to this point. But luckily, when you need him most, he's right there. Philippe Novak with a 3-goal, basically it was Brøndby 1, Philippe Novak 3. 3 absolutely beautiful goals from him to sail us through, and that guaranteed us qualification for the next round in some manner, particularly as we had our final game against Leipzig, which was really no contest. Timo Werner, Evan Ndicka, and Nkunku's goals were just completely dominant for us, though Jean-Louis Riviere did get one back to make it a little bit respectable, but they were just miles ahead of us in quality. And before I show you the group stage outcome, it's worth noting, of course, that Ferencváros, as well as us, also made the Europa League group stages. So we had 2 Hungarian sides in the Europa League group. And in the end, we managed to come 15th in our group as a result of that. But I really feel like we were probably due a couple of extra points in there, and we could have even finished up as high as sort of 5th or 6th, with some of those home wins that should have been maybe. Ferencváros, who managed to scrape through in 24th spot, they managed to win 3 matches. They were off to a flyer. An away win against Monaco, wins against Astana and Karabakh, saw them win 3 of their first 4 matches, and then proceeds to, I believe, actually lose pretty much the rest of their matches after that. Yeah, they actually lost their final 4 games, and it plummeted them all the way down the table. But that allowed both of us to progress through to the next round of the Europa League. We would face off against Hertha, who came 21st. Ferencváros, unfortunately, would face Roma, who came 10th. and are also Roma. We did remarkably well to get a 2-2 draw in Berlin, honestly. We were 2 goals down in the early stages, made a few changes in the second half to sort of grab some stuff back. Kapralik and then Brahim Diaz in the 90th minute pulled out a brilliant equaliser, and at that point we thought, you know what, we go back home, we're always better at home, let's smash this. But unfortunately, despite getting off to a brilliant start in this match and leading it on 2 occasions, including at half-time, the late equaliser from Bjorkan unfortunately was enough to take this game to extra time, where Lee Jae-sun got another goal for Hertha Berlin. They just had that longevity that we didn't. Most of their XG came from sort of the 80th minute onwards. In this one, they threw the kitchen sink at us and they got the result. For Ferencváros, on the other hand, it was very different. They actually managed to get a 2-2 draw at home against Roma. Kouame scoring very early. Dybala's penalty and Shomurodov's goals weren't enough, as Kouame's late equaliser was able to get a very comfortable, well, not comfortable, a good draw for Ferencváros, and maybe they could have even had more on the night, but it's great to see. What was even greater to see, though, is this. Roma 0, Ferencváros 1 in the Stadio Olimpico. We on stream never actually looked at the stats for this game. So this is the first time I've just noticed that Ferencváros scored their only shot on target against Roma. They were so unbearably lucky, but we will take that. I'd never actually looked at this screen before. They did progress past Roma to the next round of the Europa League. They were then faced with Heerenveen and were able to put them away quite nicely in the first leg with a 1-0 victory. Probably should have had more goals though, but I guess the luck from the last game probably factored into that. What's going on here? Unfortunately, in the second leg, the kind of bad luck, or the luck that they'd used against Roma, really caught up with them, as honestly, they should have flourished through this tie completely, but sadly went out by 3-2 in the end after a 3-1 defeat in the Netherlands. Now, there was one other team in Europe for us, and that was Molfehavar. There was obviously other teams, but Molfehavar were the only ones that got to a group stage. They reached the group stage of the Conference League. Let's track them. Remarkably, in their first effort here, they were able to come 23rd in their Conference League group, thanks to, well, just the one victory, which is away against FK Sarajevo. But you can't really complain, given that was the first game they played. They also, though, however, got draws against Midtjylland and Sporting, which was just incredible. And that draw against Sporting was what was enough to carry them through to the knockouts. So you can't really complain. They got drawn against 13th place FK Javor Matis of Serbia in the next round. We felt confident for them, and we had every reason to be. They won home and away in Serbia and got themselves a 2-0 victory to progress to the next round. But they were handily knocked out at this point by Dinamo Kiev quite comfortably. I think 2-0 and 2-1 in the games, leading to a 4-1 aggregate defeat. Not embarrassing, but just really nice to see Hungarian sides progressing in Europe. We're only in the 4th season and we're already seeing insane gains. It's brilliant. The coefficient wise this season, we got 10.875 points. That's the kind of numbers that I can't even dream about. Those kind of numbers. Since we've got into Europe, we've really boosted the others, but they're still performing well. They're signing well. It's brilliant.
Ferencváros signing players from Iran. Oh, I love it.
Not only that 10.875 was the 10th highest points tally for the year. So we're already operating on the level of a 10th place nation, despite being a bit further down. Now, we may be 22nd at the moment, but as a result of this ridiculous season, we're going to move all the way up to 16th for next year. And that is a huge step in the right direction, but it gets better. Because not only do we get that, and that's brilliant and all, that will push us to 16th. Next year, we're losing a 2.75 season. Now, one thing we haven't spoken about, and I do apologize, I completely forgot to talk about it in the last recap video. So my apologies for that, is the youth intake. Unfortunately, this year's youth intake was the biggest disappointment of the save so far in terms of youth intakes. Apologies, I have the hiccups. This obviously isn't the full youth intake, but these were the players that were deemed good enough to actually stay at the club. Now, what I would say is some of them have had their potential upgraded slightly, which is nuts. Tokšić is fine, but he's not particularly excellent. The one that stands out for me the most is Laszlo Mejeri, who, I mean, you can see he's already developing extremely nicely, and I think he's definitely the best of the bunch. Stats-wise for the year, Bobby, top scorer with 28 goals, but Riviere with 21. And that's with less games, way less matches. You can see their goals per 90 is dead on. And Gom continued to do brilliantly with 14 goals this year. Played a little bit less though, so that's reason why that might be lower. Pereira though, 16 assists, 13 goals. He just continues to chip in with brilliant goals constantly. Like in terms of how we've often lined up this season, it's mostly been Riviera or Bobby through the middle, with Pereira, Kapralik, Novak or Yakubu operating in those positions. Diaz and Lungom in here. Effie or the other Diaz operating around with Qatar or Carvajal in that role if we've needed. Mostly Sagdal with De Silva stepping in here, and Dayan obviously Larkesh coming in behind. Jarju's either operated as a centre-back or as a ball-winning midfielder from time to time, because he's Moses. He can play wherever he bloody well wants, with Moors and Radalic alongside him, depending, but we will be losing Radalic and Bosancic this summer, so a lot of new blood is going to be coming in this year, and obviously Joao Virginia in goal. That's generally speaking how it's operated so far. Now, finances, on the face of things, they look bloody excellent, you might think, and you'd be right. Except I made the mother of all goofs this season. We'd exhausted our scouting budget and we were still looking at some Brazilian players. I made the mistake of thinking that I could just get scout report on like 300 Brazilian chaps while we didn't have any scouting package. And well, before we'd noticed what had happened, within a month we'd already we were negative £600,000 in scouting budget. You might be looking at that going, well, why aren't you in £2 million worth of debt, like it says right there? So basically, sponsorship. We got another £1 million worth of brand new sponsorship. We got obviously our main kit sponsor for another £1 million, so that was good, but that was already part of the deal. We got an additional kit sponsor of 750 grand and a continental sponsor to go with it, adding another £1 million to our yearly sponsorship, and that gave us an influx of nearly £2.5 million, which basically wiped off our debt for the season. So we might finally be starting to get into some proper finances again, which is good, but particularly when you consider that our budget this year is 90 grand, but 11k in wage budget, that could stretch a hell of a long way with the type of scouting we're going to be doing. If you want to learn more about that type of scouting that we're doing and this sort of new method that we're working on, come over to stream and I'll be sure to explain it to you, because I cannot stop explaining it, but there will be a proper video about it coming out hopefully at the weekend, because I feel like it's an interesting way of allowing you to sort of get access to some of the national youth scouting that I do in that other video, but without having to have an enormous scouting budget and like 70,000 scouts to make it work. This you could do with only a couple of scouts, honestly, maybe 2 or 3, and you can get all your players for free, basically. It's really, really fun. So yeah, more on that, of course, on another time. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, that'd be lovely. Subscribe if you are new. Join me over live on Twitch right now, where we're doing the transfer window and doing some mad stuff. Probably just scavenging Belgium again, let's be honest. It's way deeper than that. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Hold your gun. Capybara. Bye-bye.